Matthew Mangam of the Daily Targum here with Rutgers women's soccer legend and United States women's soccer legend Carli Lloyd. Carli, thanks for taking the time and how are you doing today?
I'm good, doing well. I'm ready for the sun and summer to come, but all good.
Yes. Yes, very, very true. Obviously, so just looking back at the start of your career from Delaware, New Jersey, and you had a extremely highly decorated high school career. So when you were kind of recruiting for colleges, what was the process like pinning to Rutgers and the whole thing in high school?
Yeah, I mean the process has obviously changed tremendously. I mean, even from NIL to, people's commitments, nobody's really doing visits. So my process was somewhat more simpler back then. Back when we took visits to colleges, I actually took a visit to West Virginia University, NC State. I was looking at UConn. Obviously, Rutgers was in the mix. I took a visit there. Um, Trying to think, University of Maryland, I went there. And so, obviously, being from New Jersey, Rutgers is about an hour from my house. Glenn Crooks was coming in as the first, his first year of head coach, and I was his first recruiting class. And I remember him coming to visit with myself and my parents. And, his big selling point was trying to get Rutgers on the map. And, the recruitment class that he was bringing in was full of, PDA players and players that had played at somewhat high levels. And I had already kind of played with some of the older players that played on the team on an under 23 team. We actually won a state cup together. So that intrigued me a bit. And obviously being close to home, I mean, I wasn't sort of I wasn't a homebody where I needed to go home every weekend, but the fact that my parents would have been able to see me play, and I was dating my high school sweetheart at the time, who I've now married. So there were all those factors, but it was a really, really tough process for me because I was really torn between Rutgers and West Virginia. I loved Nikki Izzo Brown, the coach, and yeah, it was I remember having sleepless nights about what do I do, and asking, my parents, and it was like nobody could give you the answer except I had to go with what I felt. And in that moment I felt Rutgers was the best choice, and very grateful for the opportunity that Glenn gave me, and just allowed me to kind of be myself, allowed me to showcase my skills and try different things and all of that. So Rutgers played a huge role in just laying that foundation before I went to the pro level.
And then just right in your first year at Rutgers, 15 goals, 7 assists, program record, 37 points, and Big East Rookie of the Year. So just what was that first year for like for you just settling in with the team and all the success you already had early on?
It was great. I mean, it was fun. I remember being, nervous to kind of be in preseason, and we stayed at a hotel, and, it was obviously away from Brian and all these different things. But um, knowing some of those older players, really did help me. I remember having such an awesome, unique relationship with Carrie Lages, us connecting on the field. She was a phenomenal player, and I just felt like we got on the same page, and I would feed her balls, and she would do the same, and we had an incredible first year. I mean, going to the Sweet 16 and losing to UNC. I mean, it was an unbelievable achievement for Rutgers because people were like, "Who's Rutgers?" Nobody had really heard of the team at that point. So. Yeah, I loved it, and I loved my class. I still to this day, talk with some of my former teammates and roommates and all of that. So it was, yeah, it was a really amazing year.
hmm And kind of looking at a full picture, and it's kind of a tough question, but how do you reflect on the entire time at Rutgers? And you were torn between that, like you said, in West Virginia, but you still picked Rutgers. So, how do you reflect on your choice and the whole time on the banks?
Yeah, I mean, obviously no regrets. I mean, it all worked out, right? It's I had the opportunity of playing on the under 21 national team throughout my 4 years at Rutgers, and juggling that and juggling playing for Rutgers, and And then finishing my eligibility in 2004, finishing, graduating in '05, and then, going on to the national team and kind of going right in '05. I mean, the timing and everything just couldn't have worked out any better. And yeah, so no regrets. I mean, it gave me the opportunity, like I said, to play for the national team. I created some unbelievable memories. I forged some amazing friendships there. The school challenged me from an academic perspective. I mean, you don't realize as a state school, it was hard. There were moments where I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through this. But my nature is just always, doing what I need to do to get good grades and get extra help and all of that. But yeah, it afforded me a great education along with being able to play soccer there for 4 years and have a great experience overall.
And I read on your website how you mentioned how, right after your goal was just national team. You want to get there. And then 2005, like you said, pretty quick after you got there. So what do you think kind of led to this, that getting called up? And then what was that experience like when you finally were playing for the women's national team?
Yeah, it was surreal. I mean, had watched a lot of those players play in the '99 World Cup, and I remember being a part of my club team, the Medford Strikers, going down to Jefferson Cup, and the players had been, marketing the World Cup and they're signing autographs. And so I have some of their autographs on a poster. But I just remember, kind of being that young girl and being inspired by them and then fast forward to being in my first invite was actually in 2004, right before they were, basically picking the roster for the 2004 Olympic team. I mean, there was
Hmm.
no chance I was ever going to make that team, but the atmosphere and the environment was super intense. Everybody was vying for a spot. There was only 18 spots, two goalkeeper spots, so only 16 field players could go. But the likes of Julie Foudy, Brandy Chastain, um, Brianna Scurry, all these players, Lily, that I had grew up watching, um, were part of that. And I remember just feeling like the pace and jump from college to the pro level was, I mean, it was so fast. And I'm like, I'm not ready for this, and I've got a ways to go, but it gave me that little glimpse of how far I need to, continue to strive for and continue to work hard. And then when I was on the team in 2005, we played two games. I think my second game, I ended up breaking my wrist. And then in 2006, I was in there for consistent time all the way up until the end of my career. But yeah, it's just, it's a cutthroat environment. It's really hard. It either makes you or breaks you. And you have to find ways how to survive. Everybody kind of goes through a different journey in a different way, and my journey was hard. Nothing was ever handed to me, so I had to just work extremely hard and just constantly persevere through certain circumstances, whether that was injury, whether, coach was cutting me, whether I was benched, all of these different things that I had to navigate. But that's life. And so my career afforded me with the opportunity to have so much experience in so many different things and able to extract all the lessons from that has now prepared me in my life after soccer, and now having a daughter, being able to
Hmm.
share those experiences with her and hopefully forge her into a very strong, confident young woman.
Yeah, I saw that. Congratulations on, by the way, for that too.
Thanks.
Um, yeah, and then you kind of mentioned it, but obviously, so it's tough to get back into the team and settle. And then 2 years later, you're playing in your first World Cup in '07. So, what was that experience like for you?
Um, Exciting, but also not the way that I expected it. I think that, oftentimes we envision things a certain way of how things are going to go, and they don't go the way that we want them to go. And I had to quickly realize that not every journey is going to go exactly how I want it to go. So it's just important to be in that moment and just kind of navigate what's happening in that particular moment. But I went from being kind of a consistent starter to then not, not starting a couple games at the World Cup and then not starting and then not playing much by the end. And, our team had a kind of a disastrous performance. We were meant to do a lot better. And then, bouncing back in '08 for the Olympics. A new team. We were playing without Abby Wambach, who broke her leg due to injury.
Hmm.
He was writing us off. We had a new coach, Pia Sunhaga. And it was a totally different experience. So it's just one of those things where, you don't know how a certain circumstance and situation is going to go, and you just navigate it. And wasn't the best, wasn't my most favorite World Cup, but was able to kind of bounce back in 2008.
Hmm. And both Olympics, obviously with the gold medal for you and the U.S. women's national team, you were very, very important, scoring crucial goals in both times, both Olympics. So, what was that kind of like, scoring the goals that you needed for your team to win the gold medals in both situations?
I mean, everybody contributed in some regard, and I think for me, whenever I was in a final, I got extra motivated, and it was like a switch went off in me of just kind of raising my game. And I think that was always in me. I did it at Rutgers. I remember playing Notre Dame under the lights. We beat them. We beat Santa Clara. I just remember just kind of coming up in big moments. And I think there's certain players that are able to do that, and then there's some players that maybe crumble under that pressure. But I was always one of those players that I knew it was a final. I knew that
Yeah.
we were gearing up for a championship, and I wanted to win so badly. So yeah, I mean, I just awesome. Those goals don't happen without the team behind you, serving balls and doing all of that. But yeah, it was pretty awesome. Those are definitely some memorable tournaments that I've been a part of.
And I mean, talking about finals, I can't not mention the 2015 World Cup final against Japan. Your hat trick in the first 16 minutes. I mean, the last goal when you're shooting from the halfway line, just the amount of confidence to take that shot, like what is going through your mind in that moment?
I go back to that moment and think to myself, those were the moments that I was in my yard as a young girl, creating different situations and talking myself through, game-winning goals and um, just that creativeness, going to the local field, the Peter Vermees soccer field,
Hmm.
who we all know, and shooting in the goal, shooting shooting balls from midway, trying to reach the back of the net with the ball. I mean, just that comes out from just being a young girl in the park with, my ball and the passion and the love that I had for the game and all of the years of training. And just the confidence and the ability to know that you do have to take some risks in order to see what you're made of and what you're capable of. And I was never afraid of taking risks. I think over the years I had to learn when not to take a risk and when to take the risk, and kind of strike that balance. But yeah, it just I happened to pull that off in a World Cup final to complete a hat trick, and some of those things just happen. I don't know why, and I don't know how, but I did mean it. I knew the goalkeeper was off her line. She was off her line quite a bit that game.
Hmm.
Fact, the Japanese goalkeeper was always kind of known for being off her line because she liked to play with her feet in the back with them. So I was always eyeing that up and waited for the moment, and the moment paid off.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And when you lift that World Cup trophy, you're just thinking back to those moments, like you said, when you're playing on the field as a kid, or all the times you got, cut, like you said, or the injuries, you're like, I did it, like I made it. Is that what you're thinking, kind of, when you lift that World Cup trophy?
Yeah, just all the work that went into it. People don't see that. It's the hours and hours of training, the constant. mind games that go on in your mind, and you having to navigate, being confident, and the injuries you sustain, the benching, the coaching changes. Yeah, I mean, just the sacrifices that you have to make. It's just, it's not for everybody. It's hard. It's lonely. It's, something where you have to be disciplined, and you have to be dedicated. But you do all of that for those moments. And you don't know if you're ever going to get those moments. And those moments don't come to everybody. But I've been very fortunate in my career to have won some championships and been a part of some amazing teams. So it's, certainly worth it in the end to um, have to give up a ton in order to be there.
Hmm. And then 2021, you play your final game, walk off the pitch. Obviously, very emotional moment for you and the whole crowd chanting your name. Just was that like a full circle moment for you that you feel like, I did my goals, your whole goals from the beginning at Rutgers in high school, like, kind of like a full circle moment?
It was, yeah, on a number of different reasons. I think just my journey was very unique, and I don't think that many people thought that my journey would go the way that it went. In fact, I don't know that I thought it would necessarily go that way, and I would be able to achieve all that I achieved, but it was really special, especially having my family back in my life for that last year of my career. We, unfortunately had 12 years of not speaking, and um, I cut ties with my longtime trainer, who I worked with. And so it just was a powerful last year for me because I almost took back my self-worth. I took back that self-worth and that self-belief of, I was the woman in the arena. I was doing those things and I wasn't giving myself enough credit. And I was just empowered to know that that whole last year I did myself, without that trainer, in my ear saying, do this, do that. I was able to do it on my own, overcome different things. I was able to have my family there, and then I was able to do something really special that I had been thinking about of, putting a Hollins jersey underneath my Lloyd jersey, and then taking my Lloyd jersey off and walking off the field, and turning my back and showing my husband. I thought that that was a really cool honor that I could give him in that moment, knowing that I sacrificed a ton, but he sacrificed even more and was my support system for so long. So yeah, it just was. Yeah, I wasn't thinking about everything that I won, everything that I accomplished. It was, walking off the field, just thinking about the journey that I had, that I went about the way that I went about it, being my authentic self, never wavering from that, never trying to be somebody different. And so from start to finish, just being me. And I think that that's what I was most proud of.
Awesome. And then just my final question for you, just what was it like representing your hometown in New Jersey and Rutgers on the biggest stages and the, World Cup and everything? What was that like?
Oh, amazing. I mean, my roots started here in New Jersey, South Jersey, being close to Philadelphia, being a Philadelphia sports fan all my life growing up, and just, knowing what the grit and the determination and the kind of the blue collar work mentality is, and just really kind of bringing that energy and attitude and swagger to my game, all throughout my career, through my youth days, high school, college, and being a Jersey girl through and through, having stayed in school and went to Rutgers, being New Jersey, having now still living in New Jersey. It's home, it's where my passion of the game grew. It's where my first love came from, and it was the foundation that laid everything for me to reach this point.